Hello participants and eminent speakers. Good evening. Mula Education Society's Arts, Commerce and Science College Sonai in association with the Jumpstart Pune organizes Live International Webcast Series 1. I am Dr. Shankar Laure, Principal, Mula Education Society's Arts, Commerce and Science College Sonai. I welcome you all on behalf of Honorable Prashant Patil Gadag, President Mula Education Society Sonai, and also on behalf of Arts, Commerce and Science College Sonai. Our college is located in Newasa Tehsil of Ahmednagar district, Maharashtra state. The world faces a generational catastrophe due to lockdown situation and closure of schools and higher education institutes under coronavirus pandemic. It is a firm warning about this disruption to education that could waste untold human potential, weaken decades of progress, and intensify implanted prejudice. We all need education, the great equalizer, more than ever. It is pivotal that seamless education strategy exists to combat the current situation and make ourselves future ready. This webcast series is an educational meeting encompassing a wide range of interactive sessions with some of our highly acclaimed educationalists, researchers and startup founders in the education world. In order to enlighten our attendees, beyond the routine knowledge webinars held across the country, the presenters aims to unravel some of the best practices adopted in academia and education startup world amidst the lockdown, especially in the new age of learning paradigm. To be aligned to the context, our today's topic of discussion is challenges faced virtually during the implementation of ICT-enabled teaching methods and educators' dilemma. It takes immense pleasure to welcome our eminent speakers, our guest of honor and keynote speaker, Dr. Prabhat Ranjan, Honorable Vice Chancellor D.Y. Patil International University, Akodi, Pune, Dr. Christopher Connor, Assistant Dean and Graduate Enrollment Officer, University at Buffalo, New York, Dr. Vivek Ranga, Dean of IBS Business School, Ahmedabad, Gujarat, Dr. Apurva Palkar, Director, Incubation, Innovation and Entrepreneurship Cell, Savitribai Phule Pune University, Pune, Dr. Manjusha Deshmukh, Principal, Saraswati College of Engineering, Kharghar, Navi Mumbai, Dr. Savita Sete, Principal, Mahila College, Dean, and Dr. Jayesh Minase, Dean, Placement, Sinhagar Institute of Management, Pune. Thanks for joining us, experts.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lavre, sir, to set the prologue so descriptively. And ladies and gentlemen who are on the call today, whilst we have transcended, towards the new normal, there are many undiscovered challenges in the academia world, especially during the implementation of ICT-enabled teaching methods virtually. And honestly, we have trained close to 1,200 faculties across the country over the past 2 years. And especially during pandemic, we have seen a lot of traction on virtual training as well for the faculties to be geared up for, ICT-enabled teaching methods. And that's precisely why we intended to do this program. So without any further ado, may I please request our keynote speaker and our guest of honor, Dr. Prabhat Ranjan sir, to share his views and also enlighten us as to what his institution believes in firmly and how they have changed the entire paradigm of education as a universe. So, Dr. Prabhat Ranjan, happy to have you on the call and thank you so much.
I'll just give a brief background of me. I'm a nuclear fusion scientist and I did my PhD from University of California, Berkeley in 1986, long ago. Some of you may not recall. I came back to India and I was in national labs in US also initially and then in India. From 2013 to 2018, I was heading India's technology think tank, TIFAC in Delhi. And I'm a futurist, so my task was to prepare country for upcoming technologies. And in that context, we prepared this particular document that I would like to flash to all of you, Technology Vision 2035. This document was prepared by the organization as a follow-up of another document called Technology Vision 2020 that was written in 1996. So normally we see 20, 25 years ahead of time as to what is going to happen and how to prepare country for that. The technology vision 2020, when it was prepared, Dr. Kalam used to be our chairman from 93 to 2001 before he became president of India. During my tenure, Dr. Anil Kakutkar used to be chairman of the committee, of the governing board, and also of the committee looking after this. So when we're preparing this document, actually, we were seeing what kind of changes are happening in the education sector as well. So this document is a vision for the country with technology in different sectors to achieve the quality of life of Indian citizen. And to achieve that vision, we also prepare roadmap in different sectors. And there are 12 such sectors. And I put a little booklet along with the document, which was giving one-page write-up of each of the sectors. But I put education at the top. That was the first one in my list because I felt that education is the key to success of the country. In this, we have realized many changes that were happening because of technological changes. For example, when I was in college days or school days, from age of 10, I've been outside my home, living in ashrams, in IITs, other places. I used to spend a lot of time in library. But slowly over the last 20 years, my going to library reduced because we have access to digital information. Teacher is no longer the source of information, only source of information. So the role of teacher from being a sage on the stage has changed to guide on the side. It's no longer that you're standing on a high pedestal and giving sermons and everybody you lap it up, because that's the only source of knowledge. Today, a student can pick up more knowledge than you in any particular field they desire because of the access to information that is there. This has also led to the fact that the worldwide, the gap in information has become very less. So, maybe 30 years ago, or when I was in US, for example, what we would know there may not be the same information I would have available in India, so I would have traveled. But as things started to change, we started to break this barrier of knowledge. So many times I would be doing things in India which others would follow later on. Okay. This is a common practice. For example, almost 20 years ago, I worked on using neural networks, artificial intelligence, early stage to model my nuclear fusion reactors. Today, I'm seeing a lot of people are doing that. So I was aware of the changes happening as we were visualizing, and what we are seeing today, why we are connected today, is because of this technology that has become available to us. We have been forced into this. So it is already happening. I was using this technology in 2016, 2015. I used to have a training program for women's mid-career break, which to connect with Zoom to all the women who were being trained across the country. In fact, we received President's Award for that in 2016. So technology was changing already. What happened was that COVID forced us to adopt it very, very fast. There was no time given to us. But personally, I'm the founder and vice chancellor of the University. You can see it by back, D.Y. Patil International University in Akurdi campus of Pune. And I was always talking from 2018 itself when I joined this place as a founder vice chancellor of digital technology that is coming along. And I was preparing accordingly. I didn't want to invest too much on physical infrastructure and human infrastructure. I always talked about digital infrastructure from day one. So we're already working towards that. Suddenly, of course, when the COVID came, we were put into a situation where we had to deal with the situation in hours' notice. When lockdown happened last year in March, we only had 3-4 hours time, 8 o'clock, Prime Minister announces, and by midnight, we were already in homes, and many people had access to computers or internet. Some people did not have, or something was working, something was not working. Many students had no access to anything. And this was the situation that happened. But I think overall, all the Indian institutions responded very well to this with whatever resources they had. I've seen a lot of school teachers, the kind of effort they took to teach students. But it has its pitfalls. We just saw 2-3 days ago a little girl of 6 years from Jammu and Kashmir talking about why they're being put to 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Zoom, and she feels that too much work is being given to children who should be doing more work. And thanks to government, it responded very quickly to that. And that's the power of ICT, that a little girl of 6 years old says something and the governor of the state or prime minister responds quickly to that. So ICT is a very powerful tool. In 2001, a university was set up in Gandhinagar, Dhirubhai Ambani Institute of ICT, Information and Communication Technology. we were giving degrees in ICT, BTech ICT, MTech ICT, and so on. When the AICT committee came, they said that we don't recognize this discipline ICT. But today, ICT, we are without ICT, we are nothing. So now, since we are using these tools, what is changing and what are the issues that we are facing? When the students come to campus, and if I talk of university, large number of them are outside their home. Personally, I've been outside my home from age of 10. And also another advantage I've had, which was actually disadvantage, become advantage, that I was never studied in the same place or same city twice for 2 degrees at the same place. So every time I changed the city and the institution, that gave me a wider exposure. Now today, university and college level students, large number of them go outside home. Sometimes it's their first, being outside the home, comfort of home. It's both a challenge and learning experience. What is happening is that when we are now using ICT, students are in the home, they are again confined in the same home with the same parents, and sometimes they don't pick up the peer learning that happens, the new experience that they need to gain to mature as an individual. So that is very important. So while we are able to connect through ICT, but it is bringing its own challenge. Initial challenge was something else of technology. Over last more than a year now, we have been able to solve large number of those things. Resources are there by and large. Students have access to, if not laptop, at least a smartphone. Those challenges are there. But what we are missing out is 2-3 things. One is this peer learning that was happening, of growing outside the home, which is very, very important. Second is that the hands-on experience. Just now my grandson is in US and 3 years old. I was seeing that he and some of his friends who go to a daycare center were growing a caterpillar and then seeing the butterfly emerge out of that and then releasing it into nature. That is experiential learning. Now that learning would remain entrenched in their mind forever. Whatever you teach through whatever means you do, that will not happen. So that is very important, and that is becoming very, very difficult in this situation. What we have done is that I would also like to mention that in 2018, when our university started, 2019, we started a computer science engineering program, which I completely started from scratch. In Gandhinagar, when we started the university, 2001, also ICT we started was a complete change. We did many, many changes, including having no departments at all, because today all the work is interdisciplinary. So no departments and many barriers we broke. Later on, many of them were followed by others. Here also what I did was that whatever learning I had based on my experience in different educational institutes as well as in national labs and as head of India's technology think tank, I started a computer science program, and some of you follow me on LinkedIn actually. I shared this information on the LinkedIn. I was surprised to see more than 50,000 views. Hundreds of comments came in. And it was from all over the world. So within 2-3 days time, without spending any money, without any effort, I could get feedback from more than 50,000 people from the best places. Normally what happens, we set up a committee of experts and they come with a lot of experience, but many times they're outdated. The technology is changing so fast. When we're preparing technology vision 2035, 2 things we realized. Technology is changing much faster than we expect, and second is technology diffusion is also happening very fast. This also means technology obsolescence is very high. So students, when we enter a 4-year program, by the time they enter the first year and come out in the 4th year, the technology has changed. So what we need to do is to train students learning to learn. So I always say that learning to learn is the most important learning today, because you cannot say that I'm going to learn something in the college or university and for 30-40 years I am to work. That's not possible. So that was very important. So all that I brought in, and then I finalized my program based on the feedback from across the world. I shared that information with AICT, not seeking their approval. As a university, I took the risk of going on my own. We have the freedom, legal freedom to set our own curriculum. Thankfully, AICT has become very flexible as compared to what was 20 years ago. And they responded that very well. They said they had their committee meeting, All India board meeting. They sent me appreciation letter and formed a committee to revamp the computer science engineering curriculum in the country as well as bring new areas. And I was a member of that. Net result was that 5 to 6 new courses started based on what we had done. 2020, AICT formed approved those courses. All across the country, suddenly these courses are now being followed, including artificial and data science. All of this happened, the step that we took in 2019. One more thing we did was that we set up a fab lab in the university. That is very important for today's students to learn, where we have 3D printers, laser engravers, CNC machines. And this is very important because most of the time what we are learning in the colleges is that you're doing filing, cutting. I used to do that at the age of 10. I did in IT Kharagpur, same thing. But today the technology has changed. They brought that in. Now that is the unfortunate part that the students cannot learn through ICT. You can demonstrate that we are doing that, we are demonstrating it. They can do 3D design, but actual when you make it work, that's where your experience comes in. So right now I'm happy to announce you that when we started this university in 2019, AICT formed a committee to set up idea labs across the country on the same concept. I'm chairing the committee of AICT and we are funding half from AICT. We are funding 50% of the money to the tune of 55 lakh rupees. So more than 1 crore cost is coming in each of the idea labs. Institutions are sharing half of that cost, and it's spreading across the country. 50 we are going to announce next week, and then furthermore will follow. In 2 years, we plan to have 200 of these. So working with hands is very important for students, and somehow this connectivity is not helping us to achieve that part. A third thing is very important. India has done very well in software part, and because we had access to computers and internet, so students could have computers at their home. They could do programming and other things. When it came to hardware, electronics, embedded system, they found it difficult because they didn't have access to a lab that was required. So we introduced another concept called lab in the bag, which means that you have a little device of the size of a smartphone, for example. Through USB port, you connect to your laptop, and you have all the instruments you require, like oscilloscope, function generator, logic analyzer, digital analog output, and so on. So students now have lab in their bag. They can go anywhere. They can work in home. And today students have access to Arduino, Raspberry Pi, and other devices. And this gives them full lab. So what that is done is that actually they change the access to electronics lab and hardware embedded system. So students, in addition to software, they also start to work on hardware. And that is very crucial. So combining this lab in the back concept, combining the fabrication lab, actually what we are trying to do, and I hope, and fortunately, country has been flexible enough, the system is flexible enough to pick up this in what we did, and is spreading across. So actually, we should become the manufacturing hub of the world, like China became, and the COVID has given us this push towards that. So it's both challenge and opportunity, and I believe that India is now in a position to take that challenge. The National Education Policy 2020 that was released is a step towards that direction. When that was being prepared, we had also our own education sector document, which we shared with the committee. We had a half-day workshop with the committee, discussed all these things. So a lot of flexibility is brought in. It is now in the hands of Education Institute to see how we grab that opportunity and utilize that. Otherwise, what has been our experience? Institutions want a stamp of AICT, X, Y, Z, so that they will show that this is the stamp, this is somebody's approved. Let's take the step of that, enjoying that academic freedom that NEP 2020 is giving us. The government is favoring removing most of the regulatory bodies, having only one, and trying to make sure that we move ahead in this fast changing world and become the global manufacturing hub of the world. COVID has pushed us in that direction. Countries around the globe are looking at us and not at China. But unless education system delivers, this is not going to happen. So I'll stop at this point. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. In fact, Dr. Ranjan, there are so many things that we have learned from you in your keynote. However, a few things that I would like to present to you as part of a communication from our participants as well is that the new era of digital learning has a lot of challenges, and most primarily the challenge being technology and internet bandwidth, especially in rural parts of the country. As you know that, most of the institutions or colleges which are autonomous or it's been granted colleges, they are at the bottom of the pyramid. And these challenges are usually not faced by tier 1 or tier 2 cities. These are normally challenges faced by tier 3, tier 4, and so on and so forth. So what should be be simple, few tips for the faculties when they are adopting this new change? Of course, we will talk about technology and things like that, but one of the cry that most of the teaching staff have is that there is internet issue, and because of that, we are not able to see that momentum, in terms of teaching. So, what's your view on that?
Right. So internet today has become the like our roads. If you didn't have proper highways, you always complained about highway, the roads not being in good shape and so on. Today, internet is the road on which our education system is moving. Now, what happens is that the technology takes a big leap. For example, when I was in Kharagpur first time, we had access to television around 1977. We were somehow trying to put an antenna, you rotate the antenna on the roof, try to get some signal. Kharagpur did not have the TV station, it was from Calcutta, so it was long distance. You had to somehow capture that. Suddenly, we had the Dist TV coming in and changing this so-called what you talked about in rural and urban divide and tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 was gone when you had Dist TV because you had the satellite access everywhere, whether you're in a forest or in a city. In fact, probably you had a better access in the forest with less interference. Today, some of you are not aware, we might see very soon Elon Musk, a Skylink thing, where 160 to 300 megabits link will be available from satellite at any place on the earth. And he had mentioned that India, he might do it by June if government gives him the permission to go ahead. So he said he's already, and this June is now already there. I'm not sure what is the status of this, but very soon we may see that suddenly this whole internet business will get disrupted with having access to internet through your Skylink kind of thing. And so that division between what division I was talking about, developed world versus the developing world, with internet removed that to some extent. Today, actually, it's likely that that kind of disruption we are going to see. For example, not to really promote any particular brand, but when the Geo came in, suddenly we saw drivers who were not using Google Maps starting to use Google Maps because the bandwidth becomes so cheaper. Okay. So there is likely to be such technological advancements which are going to break this barrier. But of course, what is there is the mindset of people. Okay, given the same technology, somebody can be more adaptive to that, and somebody can be less adaptive to that. Fortunately, I'm a person who has worked with computers almost from 1970s, 76, 77. I've been using computers. I've grown with computers. I've seen the way computers have grown in the world. And although I'm from physics, but people don't even know that I have a physics degree, but they think I'm a computer expert. So actually, it depends on you how people across the country, and actually people find problems, they solve it also. And India is a country of Jugaad, and yes, we have seen this happening. So I'm sure that in next few months' time, we would see major breakthroughs happening across the country and the world in terms of internet accessibility. The 5G technology is already also coming in, which will make the latency of the signal very less. So the time it takes for the signal to go and come back will become less. The bandwidth will be higher. So the response time, and what I'm going to expect to see is that what we are connecting today through two-dimensional will become three-dimensional. Your augmented reality, virtual reality, and holographic coming in. And we are working on this actually, that actually in your room, you would have a teacher, holographic teacher, a holographic guru talking in your language and interacting with you in a personal way. So it's like having a teacher in your home. So these are the technologies that are coming in, this part of the document that we have shared and what is going on. And I'm expecting HoloLens very shortly. If COVID was not that, I would have got it right now. So a lot of changes are happening, and I believe that will remove these barriers that you're talking. One more point actually, and very important for India actually, both the school level and others, is that we have large number of languages in the country, and today artificial intelligence is making it possible that we would be able to connect to any student in their language of choice. And learning in the language of their choice is very, very important in the country for students to learn, get knowledge. And today artificial intelligence is making that possible. And shortly, you'll start to see this already happening. We'll start to see in a bigger way. And combining holograms with artificial intelligence-backed language will make our Guru Shish Parampara that we had 200, 300 years ago be on large scale available to all of us. We'll have a guru adapted to our language, our needs, and customized our needs is going to happen. So that's what I'm seeing in future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ranjan. It was a pleasure listening to you. And I think this will be first experience, at least for me, to listen to you as a speaker. And we are really enthralled and enlightened with your wisdom. And of course, it cannot be backed so powerfully with the kind of intelligence and the knowledge that you have gained over all these years. I'm sure the kind of collective experience of many faculties in the participation list today would not compromise, conclude together to your experience. So thank you so much, Dr. Ranga. Thank you for joining this webcast series today. And I understand you represent one of the most coveted business schools in the country and institution with such a high repute. How has your institution sought answers to the challenges of ICT-enabled teaching methods, which is just not through the online meeting platforms such as Google or Zoom or any other medium, but also some future-based techniques such as reverse learning, flipped classroom, pre-recorded video lectures, etc. So, would you like to throw some light on that? And of course, you can share your experience about how you are answering to these disruptions.
Thank you for inviting. It was very insightful to listen to Professor Ranjan, and I think he has put up very futuristic thoughts in his brief talk. I would say that we are divided into two eras, before COVID and after COVID. That is the kind of era. We are still not in after COVID. We are, many of the things have been said that we're going to live with the COVID. So I think a lot of things have taken a backseat what we have been doing, and a lot of things are reinvented. I see often when I interact with my faculty colleagues, students, the first question is, okay, was it you were doing before COVID or after COVID? So I think this things have changed. I'll just quickly recall, the 3 points in which our entire philosophy of tackling this, because we are a business school, our courses is a postgraduate program, and we run it for 2 years. In fact, it's lesser than 2 years. The students spend time with us around 20 months, and we felt that if this is going to happen online, initially when we started, we were also not very clear. I remember I was coming from Bangalore on 20th March. That was a Friday. I was at the Bangalore airport, and I saw the airport vacant. And that time I realized the situation is really becoming very grim, and the flight was almost 30%. So we realized it was peak hours, the airports and all things were vacant. Immediately when I came on 20th March, we did a telecon we did. The campus was closed. And as Professor Ranjan said, many of us, we did not have the right infrastructure, not even a broadband. Many of them were surviving on a mobile data. So quickly, I talked to my younger faculty, and he said that we could do a WhatsApp video call, and then we gathered on a telephonic call. And first priority for us was because we had completed our academic time, and our students were on internship. And I said, how do we tackle them on internship? Because if they're not going to do anything on internship, possibly when they come to second year, they will not be hired. And we thought of these things will get over in 15 days, and lockdown was not announced. So we anticipated. So what we did was, we thought of why don't we give them one assignment, all the faculties, and which will evaluate them at the end of March. And this will make them at least survive next 10 days, they would not have a holiday. But things change. We thought of this. We departed this on 20th March. We did had given some assignment. But on 24th, we had a lockdown and it was extended. So I think only thing happy note was for us was we were able to act very fast. We thought of something which is really in place. A communication had gone to the students and recruiters that our students will not be on the internship. That's how it happened, and rest is the story, and it continued to be extended and all. Then our premise was there were 3 things we had to focus. While hardware and all those things were an issue, So, and till May it was a big issue. We did not have vendors and all those kind of things. We need to look at how that knowledge delivery would happen. Because we don't see a possibility of going to the campus and so all those things. We need to look at, because somebody going to hire will not like to compromise on the knowledge part. If they need people in finance, investment, banking, they would need the requisite knowledge. So that is something which we'll have to revisit, and how these things would happen, because the students would be at home and all those kind of things would happen. I think Professor Ranjan mentioned that the peer learning, the exposure of being at the campus, coming through, driving through, coming through public transport. I think this is a lot of value for any student. And for business school student, yes, it is much, much more. Third was, how are we going to build up a real life scenarios? We were sending students for industrial visits, we were sending them to corporate offices, they were working, all those things are going to be missed out. Okay, so these were the three things which we thought that this would get compromised, and this will be in a high priority area. So what was happening was, we started creating, and in fact, we had a system at ICFI Business School. We had a system called Pitfalls, which was a customized version for Moodle. We were using since 2012, and the team which was managing this around 2012 were harnessing that. Please use this system. None of the faculties were. It was only utilized till 20% of the extent. We were taking attendance, we were restoring some materials, and all those kind of things were happening. But suddenly that team became prominent, and the entire one of our colleague who had she designed all the system and customized. She started training the faculty, and I think that was a big challenge. Making the faculty in month of May to sit on all the system training for 8 to 10 hours was a big issue. So all that thing happened. We did talk to vendors for providing connectivity to the faculties at homes and transferring systems when things have opened up. So all these things were mitigated. Now currently, when we've done all these things, I think we have a good experience of 1 year. But let me tell you, the pitfalls of that is, I was talking to a group of teachers who were handling primary kids. And if you look at the down the line pyramid, that has something highest level of problem, because imagine a kid who is 3 to 4 years thing, he or she would learn a lot of skills while he goes to the playgroup. Now what is happening is, the same kid is sitting in front of a screen and the teacher is trying to do that, and we derived that thing, that their job is most difficult. Our kids, when they're coming at a post graduation level, I think these things are being done. So what we thought of that, this is going to be the most difficult thing. So what we said, that our role in knowledge transfer is getting limited, because you don't know whether the student is in the right frame of mind, whether he's there or not. Because many of them would say that, I'm not having a bandwidth, my camera is not working and all that. So our role is getting limited. So we said knowledge has to be replaced by skills. So give them more assignments which are trying to teach them more things which are making them to do a lot of things rather than giving. So we reduce our class timings, we created more activities, and really, I tell you, I've been teaching for now 21 years. Again, revisiting, although we keep on revisiting, but thinking module by module, transferring the knowledge product into a skill product was a very, very difficult scenario. So we had assignments and all those kind of things. And not only that, doing the faculty training, all of us coming to the same page was very important. And not only we're talking about an Ahmednagar, we are a 9 location business school. So everybody coming at the same page was very important. So I think that knowledge replacement towards skill was important, because they would then remember the knowledge part of it. Second, we said that how are we going to tackle the interaction part, which is going to be missed out. The peer group is, we're missing out those entire components. There's a peer pressure component you're missing out. How do we do that? And we are on a case method of teaching, which itself has a lot of participant-centric learning. So you discuss, you articulate, and all those kind of things. So we said that we will involve students, and a lot of things have happened. And I think today's schools gives us things like breakout rooms and all those kind of things within that framework. It has given a lot of flexibility. We were adaptive in simulations, but we had gone a big way on simulations-based learning, because that has really involved students. They were happy on having an Excel, and they felt like that. So what we felt was, we need to create an element of pressure, because what happens to a student's mindset? If I don't like somebody in the campus, I still have to face him or her. But what happens in an online? I will close that. The peer pressure component is just missing out. So I think that was something which was we did simulations, competition, quizzes. And in fact, we have created a lot of things. I'm sure all of the institutions must have created all those kind of things. But we thought of that has to be brought.
Sir, Vivek, sir, just one point of pause here. So you mentioned that considering the internet bandwidth issues will still remain till we move towards the new wave of having a skyline, adaptability of technology, what Dr. Ranjan mentioned. Are you saying that emphasis on specific assignments to students or all the participants would really help the faculty to have a better engagement by giving them more and more assignments?
We of course have, obviously we have a lot of pre-reads to be done, a lot of pre-preparation to be done before you come into the class. But what was more happening was, since we have a lot of field component, in every subject, you are expected to go to corporate office and the industry to do that. Now that was missing out. So what has happened is we need to create parallel activities which can partly replace that experience. It will not be 100% replacement, because the point is that even if my students are going to study from home, tomorrow they are not going to do jobs from home. There are many industries they are working. FMCG industry is working, the retail industry is working, the aviations are working. They have to be, and that is one of the feedback which we had distinctly from the recruiter, that you are teaching online, but prepare your student for a mindset that they will be doing jobs online, because a lot of banks have worked, because it's a big time that 2 years you are going to be at home. Now imagine a place like Ahmednagar where you have 48 degrees and you're out in the sun, or for that matter in India, anywhere. I think that reality perspective has to come, and that will only come while they have been involved in something. So we had assignments like a day in a bank, life of a banker. So you become a banker and you talk about what has been a kind of banker. So at least we start making them feel. So that was thing. The third part which I was coming, that the real life industry we were missing out, because the industry visits were not happening, the internships were not happening. So what we did, and I'm sure many of the institutions did, and in fact we train our lot of faculty through a lot of connects of Harvard Business School. We were a member of this and Harvard Business School. Now, when they started looking at this, okay, Harvard Business School is doing this, you get a much more acceptability to doing that. So when you start listening from the best practices across the globe, and so that was one thing which we did, was connecting very extensively with the recruiters, with the alumni, with the industry people, and which brought them a real perspective. That was one thing. We also did a very interesting series of those businesses which failed. Like restaurant business has a miserable time. So we called all those people who have almost gone bankrupt. And while they were talking about the rentals and all those kind. So I think that was much more important. Now, where are we now? We're still thinking that in terms of that we will open up, will not open up, all those kind of things are happening when the classes would happen. I think we have covered a good road. We have an experience with us. I think it's very important as educational leaders, as a faculty, something which was done last year, which was more instantaneous. Okay, with all paucity of resources we had. We're in a review. Yeah.
A time check, 1 minute.
Yeah. So we are in a review mode. How can we alter the pedagogy much more better? What is that we have done? We have done something. I tell you, none of us had an experience of speaking on camera. Let me admit that. I think that was also a practice
Yes.
for a lot of us to do. I think the time is that we review, we create infrastructure. Yes, the hardware will come in. We have all installed the smart boards. So whether the few students are there, they will still have the experience of a class being there. There are two-way smart boards and all those hardware. I think we have best bandwidths today at homes. We supported our staff, faculty, everybody to do that, encourage students to do that. But I think what we need to do is efforts are much more required today. And I'm sure there are already tools available today in terms of conducting, whether you talk about examination, you talk about the attendance system, everything, the tools are available. I think so hardware and software will follow. I think much more is about preparation. And we not only looked at preparing our students and the faculty, in fact, staff, the supporting staff, we encourage them to take up a lot of certifications, so the learning keeps on happening. I think that is what was required. And I'm sure we'll be able to being much productive, even when we go to the offline mode, I think we still have that online component being there. And it's, as mentioned,
Yes.
we become very productive,
It's going to be a blended learning experience.
Yes, I think that's going to be very, very productive. The better side, you see kids of 3 to 4 years setting up Zoom meetings and all those things. Their IT skills have increased. And the housewives are still using internet effectively. There are cooking shows happening. There are yogas happening. So I think we have learned to be taking all that advantage of this online learning. And I'm sure education has taken front lead into that. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Mr. Ranga. I think it's important that we all understand the the way we are trying to adapt to the situation vis-a-vis considering who our stakeholders are, and considering that our stakeholders are our students, and it is most imperative for us to make sure that they are comfortable while we are meeting our faculty objectives. So it is not about just finishing and having a check in the box in terms of completing a curriculum, because we are in that rat race of finishing curriculum, but we are not seeing the efficacy of learning. We are seriously missing out on the efficacy of learning. Without any delay, I would request Dr. Deshmukh, ma'am, to quickly, share some insights about her college. Deshmukh, ma'am, I have worked very closely with your college, and with an influx of over 3,000 students enrolled with your engineering college, what is the expectation of the students when it comes to online teaching? Uh, are your faculties prepared and ready to face the ongoing pressure? Because this is the time where every faculty is actually sitting on a burner to see how soon they can complete the task which is being listed out by the universities. So, what is your views on that?
So, talking about students' expectations from online learning, so as we all know that very few people learn well in isolation, because most learn more effectively through social interaction. So most institutes are missing the boat when it comes to attaining the full potential of online learning. So if we think from students' point of view, online learning, according to them, online learning should be a learner-centric learning. Lectures should be interactive. When we talk about interactive sessions, we should use technology to improve the online learning by engaging students in hands-on demonstrations, use of animations, videos that can be utilized. Like I will give you an example of computer engineering, say computer programming. So in this kind of subjects, it is more interactive to engage the students on the computer, even if it is online, rather than teaching it offline in the classroom by using chalk and board. As you asked about the faculties, where the faculties were prepared and ready to face the ongoing pressure, yes, of course, faculties were prepared and ready to face the changes. Obviously, being an engineering faculties, for them, it was very easy to use technology and adopt new style of teaching. At the same time, during faculty development program that was organized along with Jumpstart, they learned about concept of flipped classroom. So they learned about how to make videos, how to create a Google Classroom. So they were very comfortable to shift from offline to online. Talking about their efficiency of faculties. So in any kind of teaching, the main objective should be to identify learner's learning style and to understand his facial expressions. So, but in online system, since you are unable to see the facial expressions and their body language, it becomes difficult for teachers to identify the suitable teaching style. And
So,
so I don't claim online system is as effective as offline.
yes, absolutely, ma'am. So I'm certainly in line with what you mentioned. However, there is a paradigm shift in the way we are going to see education, in the futures to come, right? When we talk about the 21st century skills that is required for faculties, right? One of
Yeah.
the most important aspect is creativity and innovation. So
Yes.
creativity and innovation directly implies how differently are you going to share the same curriculum that you were delivering in a classroom now through a virtual mode, right? And that's where that effectiveness comes into play. Whether the student understood what the concept was. So I was talking to one of the agricultural college. They said, how can I share with the student how to sow seeds into the main field, and how to tell them what is germification, right? So these are some typical issues that a faculty faces even in rural India. But when I asked you that specific question in terms of faculty effectiveness versus student engagement, how do you track, the attendance of the faculties versus the students? How do you see that graph, whether the attendance is moving up? Because more and more students come into the foray of learning, you see that the faculty becomes more and more confident in front of the screen. So how do you look at all that measurement system?
So, talking about faculty effectiveness, so I don't think it affects whether it is offline or online. It is all about personality. It's individual attitude towards word. So, it is very important question actually. Knowing individual's personal trait is very, very important. The administrator should be able to know the personality traits, aptitude, intelligence, abilities, and behavioral style. It is very essential for any administrator to assign suitable admin role to each one. And in online also, it was very much required. So psychometric testing carried out by Jumpstart enabled us to select the faculties who would fit a particular job role. So through this, it was very easy for us to assess their domain skill and then allot the job which are more suitable for them during online and offline as well.
Well,
So
just a pause. So, ladies and gentlemen, ma'am is not trying to market Jumpstart, but this is actually an outcome that her institution has seen by investing this program on psychometric assessment. And
yes,
let me tell you, out of the 1,200 faculties that we have trained, I can bet on this that only 5% of the faculties would have gone through a self introspection and self assessment so far in their career. And this helped her college to look at the over whisker plot of whom to give what kind of an assignment. And I think that's where you're coming from, ma'am, in terms
yes,
of
yes.
curation of the content and so
Yes,
and so.
yes. Actually, we have divided the faculties in different quadrants, and then I have assigned the job role based on their skill set. And then it was very effective, whether it was offline or online, as I said. So, then talking about performance record card or technology interface for tracking the system, yes, for evaluating the teaching style, we are using software to receive online feedback from the students and questionnaires. The questionnaire that we are using for online, it is completely based on the requirements of online learning, whether the Wi-Fi of faculty is giving a good bandwidth or not, whether PPTs are made, whether videos, whether faculty is showing videos or animations. So these kind of questions are included to collect the feedback from the students, and it is completely feedback system is also a software developed by our own students and faculties, and we are using it for taking the feedback. At the end, I would like to suggest that faculty should focus on interacting with the students in a meaningful ways, whether it is offline or online. Online it is more important. So outside the classroom and in online, the faculty should be always available to answer the questions and give guidance. With new technology, interaction in learning can be more diverse, creative, and valuable. So
Thank you so
that's
much. Thank you so much. I think that's very, very interesting because this is one area that I always wanted to check in terms of how do we evaluate faculty effectiveness versus student engagement. And ma'am, you have given us one of the ways to look at it. So thank you so much. We have our next speaker, Dr. Savita Shere, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining the session today, ma'am. And I'm sure you have really read through everything that is required in terms of, how the education, paradigm has shifted over a period. And you've been advocating the principle of education for all, and you have stood as a strong pillar when it comes to women empowerment. How do you see this disruption in the education field, especially with the ICT enabled teaching methods? Is there anything specific that you're looking at because your college is situated in a less strategic location with intermittent internet bandwidth and network issues? So, how do you, look at this as one of the game changers for your college?
Good afternoon, everyone. This COVID-19 pandemic has really given a very great setback to our institutions in this area, I would say. I'm going to put the things which I'm going to put here now are bit reverse in whatever has been put till now, because from the universities and engineering colleges and professional colleges, as they are having all the infrastructure set and all the mindset, professional colleges. So my college being a women's college, two things are there. I mean, there is a question of arts, commerce, and science colleges. And another thing is that this is my college, is a women's college, which is affiliated to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Marathwada University, Aurangabad. So it is situated at a place in a bit interior area, we can say. And as it is a purely for girls college, so there are so many restrictions, though so many limitations are there for girls education, whether it is, I mean, when it was offline at that time also, and when it is online, those restrictions are also there, rather they have been raised, which we have seen. So it was stuck like anything. My picture is a bit different what we have heard till now. So when COVID pandemic came, our total system was bit stuck, stopped, like this. It happened, but teaching process was not going at that time. At that time, examinations were there, but due to the lockdown declaration, examinations were stopped, and then they the university conducted the examinations in June, July, and all. So that was as per the academic calendar, that was the period of holidays only. So that period we passed like something. But after the examination, when our classes were to start, at that time we did many things which we could do. First thing is that our girls, they don't, I mean, both ways, teachers and students, teaching and learning process for both of them, it was bit, I mean, what we say is that it was delay, I mean, stopped or delayed, or because so many things which you have asked, that is the internet bandwidth is there, no internet connectivity is there. That is one thing. But many of the girls, they don't have the mobile phones only. I mean, many of the girls, they are from rural area. Even you, if they come from the suburban areas and all, basically in our society, very few parents are there who are pro for the women's education. And when it comes in the COVID-19 pandemic situation, it comes, then they are in the need of at least smartphone. Leave about the computer and laptop and other things, but at least a smartphone they should have. As Professor Ranjan sir was saying, even Vivek Ranga sir was saying, and even Manjusha Dr. G was saying, because as these were the professional colleges, but here, as being arts college, many girls, they are not having mobile phones and not accessibility for all these things. Question of internet bandwidth is there. That is a different question. And many of the girls, they are married. So again, after marriage, the priority is given to the household work and children and going to farm and doing all these things. So they are more engrossed in all those things, and weightage or importance to the education is not given much here. And this is not the case of only my college, I would say. I mean, if you go to the women's education in this area or any area like this, and that too specifically in the arts, commerce, and science colleges. So this is the picture. Leave about the professional colleges, because they have this, that structure is there. They have that placement and all other things are there. That setup is there, but not for the arts and commerce college. I would say that doesn't mean that all colleges are like this only. Few colleges are exceptional. They are doing very well. Like now, this Nagar college is doing all these things. So such colleges are there, but majority of the colleges are, they are facing. So due to this, I mean, even my college example, if I would like to, if I want to say, is that only 25% girls, they are having the access with the for the mobile phones, and they could come for the classes and all. So when it happened, then we could do some things for the girls, for the teachers, some workshops, some webinars, some seminars, and ICT, how to develop the e-content and how to go for the online classes and all these things. But all these things were basic for our colleges. Because earlier also, I mean, COVID-19 pandemic has forced us, as Professor Ranjan sir said just now. Earlier, that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that no teacher was I mean, he or she shouldn't have done all these things before pandemic. They should have done, but we in our colleges, I mean, all these traditional colleges and all, so not much importance was given for the ICT, even if the NAC and all. When I go to many colleges, we say that as it is given in the NAC, SSR and all 7 criteria, now they are doing something, but it was not focused a lot. But due to COVID pandemic, it happened, so we could do something. A picture is not very, motivational, I could say. It is rather to, it is the picture which will be giving a opportunity for all of us and for the educators, parents and policymakers and all to think for what can be done for the women's education, and that too for the rural area and for the a bit backward area and all. So this is the situation. So to some extent, some e-content development and all these things, our teachers, they started online classes. We could we decrease some time span for the classes and all for the girls. As we initially, we could adjust some our timetable as per their times, as per girls will be available, because they are not having phones. If their parents are having phones, they will be busy in the farms and all. So many problems are there for, I mean, as far as my college and related to other colleges also. So this online education, I mean, offline also, but online education has given many times here. I mean, I don't know, Mr. Christopher is here, and here there is another problem is there, that is continuously electricity breakage is there in rural areas. I mean, interruption is there. So how to charge? Again, another question is there from the poor economic background. If the girls are there, say even the recharging of the mobile phones, that is also issue. So we could speak with. We have done many. Efforts we have taken in this way. My college staff, we distributed our staff members, the students, we made different subject wise and year wise WhatsApp groups, and continuous dialogue with the girls, continuous dialogue with the parents. Even we could we conducted regular meetings with the staff, regular meetings with the parents also. But parents also very few number, because those who are having mobile phones and those who are interested in coming by leaving their job and farm work and other things, whatever number they came, we could we tried to convince them that is at least do something, because our college is not that rich and all to provide all students mobile or accessibility as, or any mobile connectivity, internet connectivity and all. So we did all these things, and result is that initially no one was ready, no one was interested, but now to some extent I could say 25% girls, they are attending the classes, they are coming for the online classes, they are now they have become aware about all these things, how to go for YouTube, how to see and how to see the PPTs and how to prepare PPTs, all these things, and for teachers also. But one question is there for the regarding the lack of competency among the teachers is also the problem in this area, we can say. Because first thing is that earlier we have not done anything, so now if it has come, we need to learn all these things. So just now he said, Professor Ranjani said, learning to learn is very essential. So for this also they should do all these things. So this is also, because these, I'm just projecting my college, but this is the situation of many colleges here, we can say. And online classes, as in professional colleges and universities, as just now we have heard, is going very regularly and very efficiently and all. We cannot say like this, but efforts are, people are taking their efforts, colleges, managements, principals, teaching staff, non-teaching staff, they are doing. But there is a question for the girls education, that is very serious problem on this international platform, I could say that. Because when COVID-19 started, since that time I am saying that this COVID-19 has again given very bad effect on the girls education. Because earlier also no importance is given by the parents, they are not very pro, and after now this, it has become more. So this is the situation in this area. I mean,
So,
there is a lot of things are there to speak, but due to the time limit, I will stop here.
no, thank you so much, ma'am. And I think I'm so happy that you've been so candid in front of the camera, in front of everybody, in front of international crowd, that you do not shy away with the trouble, with the pain area that your region goes through. And let me tell you, a big salute to you, ma'am, that you've been so candid in saying that, because here it is not about what's going well, it's about what's not going well.
Yes.
right? People have a ready reckoner and a guide for what's going well. Everybody publishes, we did this, we did that, and that's the ready reckoner. But nobody has a ready reckoner what is not going well in the grassroots and what is it that we can do for them, right? And we really, really appreciate your opinions and your, you sharing this so wholeheartedly to us. We really thank you for that. And would see Dr. Connor joining the call. Dr. Christopher Connor, welcome to the International Webcast Series. Thank you so much for joining us, especially it's an early day for you then. Great. So, Dr. Connor, you've been hearing about what kind of conversations we've been having here with few of our eminent speakers, and we have been talking about most of the challenges that we are facing, especially in terms of the technology and talking about the student engagement versus faculty efficacy and so on and so forth. And without any further delay, I would certainly want to go to talk to Dr. Connor. Thank you so much, firstly, for taking time out for this webcast series.
No, thank you very much for having me join you this afternoon. I have to say, I echo a lot of the sentiments that Dr. Savita Sheth makes. This is very important things to think about. I think one of the things I'd like to start by saying is assumptions. When the pandemic began, many of our universities and colleges essentially were left in a very quick turnaround period of what do we do next. There were assumptions being made by those who are running universities that we can quickly turn the lights, go from in-person to virtual. And that will be seamless. The issues of access, of bandwidth, these are issues that are very important globally to us as well, and that we experienced as significant problems within our universities. But let me back up for one moment before I get into that. But I wanted to also just echo some of the great comments that I've heard today, some things that I've learned from each of you as well. But we in March of 2020 we're moving along pretty well within our university. I myself am the Assistant Dean and Chief Enrollment Officer in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at the University at Buffalo, the State University of New York system. But I also have previous experience managing other schools within the university in their administrative and their teaching methods and factors. In particular, in my role in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, I'm responsible for developing the recruitment plan of students, student success and retention strategies, as well as instructional support for our professional development program. And that's one of the areas that I want to talk about in terms of delivery of instruction, some of the challenges that we faced. But backing up to March 2020, at our university, things were moving along very well. We as a university are not an online distance education school. Literally overnight, things were changed, our world had changed, and many of our faculty had to quickly pivot to an online environment. We learned a lot. We were bruised a lot through the process as well. I think there was an assumption being made, let's just record courses or get our faculty in front of computers and the students will be able to learn. Issues of access were occurring as well. Some of the students during the pandemic returned to their home countries. We also learned very quickly that one size does not fit all. Treating our domestic students differently than our international students in terms of what challenges some may have related to access issues. Understanding also in our teaching methods, just going online and telling everyone to turn their cameras on, and then people may have issues with access to having a laptop that had a camera at that point in time. We had to adjust our teaching methods to think about everyone. So one of the big challenges, and we still face issues related to access to students and being able to effectively engage with them. So one of the big issues that we had was engagement. How do we know the difference between listening and hearing? Those are two very different things. Number one, in particular, and I heard several of the speakers touch on this, is breaking things down into digestible, smaller components of micro sessions, meaning that the students being able to sit in front of a computer for a 2-hour class or a 90-minute class with one-way communication is not an effective way of being able to communicate and engage with students. So we broke many of our courses down into smaller videos. engaging and doing micro surveys and checkpoints with students as they were going through the curriculum, as opposed to it being faculty member teaching to the students or an instructor teaching to the students and assuming that they were absorbing all of the information that was being shared with them. We needed to make sure that they were being able to be engaged in the right mindset at that point in time. Constant communication and check-ins in terms of not overwhelming them with assignments necessarily. I heard one of the speakers talking about, do we want to just keep giving them assignments? Are they being able to continue to engage? And what some of the concerns that were related with that. But being able to make sure that they're being engaged, and also understanding and learning and growing with us. That was something that was extremely important to us. But then also identifying that certain curriculum are just not made for online. There are significant struggles with providing online education. We experienced this in many of our laboratory intensive courses where faculty were unable to access laboratories and students were unable to access laboratories. But was there something that we could do to provide the students at home, things for them to be able to engage and apply some of the information that they would be in the instructional curriculum that they were learning in the classroom and applying it in an environment at home. So a lot of pivoting with regards to that. But as far as another very important component was engagement, student-to-student engagement. We, in many of our classes, set up peer-to-peer communities where students would have the ability to engage with other students. That's a very important thing that we discovered during the pandemic. Student mental health issues and isolation from one another, being able to have those students be able to engage with one another in projects and activities even outside of the classroom. We had potlucks where students would virtually share about some of the meals that they were preparing, but getting them to be able to think even outside of the classroom. Our staff and our faculty also had drop-in open office hours. In addition to structured time that a faculty member or staff would be available, we also made sure that once a week, one of our staff members was on hand to be available for students to come in at any time that they wanted to and discuss. They may not feel comfortable with a group of students there having a private conversation, but at the same time, it allowed us the ability to have students, us to understand, alerting, are there problems that are occurring with online learning, and having us be able to assess where do we need to pivot and adjust our methods. Yes, students will complain sometimes to the sake of complaining, but the very concerns that were brought up by several of our speakers today are valid concerns, and we need to figure out a way of adapting as educators to better address this. And the final piece before I continue I wanted to make is tying it to careers. One of the challenges that we had at the very beginning is students accepting, parents accepting online education. This is a huge paradigm shift globally. It's a huge paradigm shift even in our own countries of people accepting online education. You look at the different demographic of student, the traditional student, the student that went from secondary school all the way to getting their BTech or BCom degrees, moving on to their MCom degree, okay, without very, very much work experience, versus the non-traditional student who maybe has taken education along the way, but then is working full-time. The acceptance from parents and the acceptance from someone who is working is much higher in the online community. There is a significant amount of distrust and concern for the lack of socialization skills that students and their families will have regarding an online. Will my student be able to adapt to the online environment? Will that help them in the long run? Are they actually going to learn? Or are they going to be in a situation where they're simply getting information thrown at them without the ability to grow and understand what their learning outcomes are, and then effectively be placed in a position afterwards? We threw in more integration with careers, yes, in terms of both academia and industry, through our professional development program, and in concert with many of our academic programs that we were teaching, making sure that that connection of knowing where the student's skill set with careers tied to the curriculum, that will get their attention. Because ultimately that's where they want to be placed. They want to know what companies they're going to do. So we did a lot of work during the pandemic, which we had wanted to do for years, on creating a public Tableau dashboard that showed the outcomes of all of our students through a combination of sources. We have about 5,700. Our public Tableau dashboard is available on our website in our School of Engineering, but it allows students who were attempting to recruit and students who we currently have enrolled to be able to see where students prior to them have been getting placed in internships as well as placements for jobs. But ultimately, the shift to online for us, a lot of growing pains that we had gone through to adjust to that. We have learned, though, additionally, in terms of very important is the onboarding of new students. So traditionally, we had our orientations in person. Pivoting to the online environment also meant that we needed to do more in terms of making sure that students were prepared to succeed in a virtual environment. So more engagement from our faculty during the engagement levels of orientation and getting our departments involved in what does it mean to be a virtual student, what are some of the things, suggestions that they can give, as well as panels from other students. So those are just some things I'm going to throw out there to begin the conversation with, but these are some of the things that we have done within our university to mitigate some of the shock. We have learned that some of our programs we may want to continue to be online. One in particular, pre-pandemic, we had an engineering management program online, which was meant for a non-traditional student. Many of the methods in that program, we have learned that potentially a cohort-based model. Cohort-based models work very well in online education. It takes more from faculty and staff to adjust the cohorts, but it makes it a little easier because those students can interact with the same students working on projects and continue on. It does take more administrative work to be able to set them up, but I'll just leave those as introductory comments.
Sir, just to take a pause, so when you said the cohort model, right, we are talking about more to more peer-to-peer kind of a learning, right? It's like, you know, in India, when I used to study in my high school, I used to go to my friend's place for the night over, study there, and then next day morning go and attend the examination, right? That's how we used to sit together and study, and the next day we used to go to of course, there were always questions from family members. Are you guys really studying or you guys are busy partying, right? That's a different thing. But that's the model that we've been inherited. We've been, we've been brought up that way, right? This is something that we are just putting a nomenclature to that same model of execution of peer-to-peer learning, right? Just that we are talking about a hub and spoke model where we have a bright student who has understood the concept, who is going to explain to the rest of the students how to go about, demonstrating that concept, right? And that's where this kind of a model helps. Have your college also looked at flipped classroom and reverse learning kind of methodology?
Yes. So the other method that we looked at is making sure that we had multiple streams available for certain types of courses. So we did have high flex classes where classes would take place and they would be synchronous. Students would be able to have some live instruction. And at times there's also certain instruction that may speak to some of the issues that Dr. Savita was mentioning regarding the access to bandwidth challenges. So one of the problems that we were facing as students were all across the world. I mean, 80% of our students in the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences at the graduate level are international. That also for us in the pandemic, we are international. That means that we need to be mindful of these bandwidth and access issues. So certain components of our instruction were made available offline, that where students who didn't have access could access them if they had a bandwidth issue at a later time. More on the sense of also looking at synchronous, asynchronous, in terms of having the students be able to do projects at their computers and kind of putting the students on the stage. Yes, we have done that. It is heavily dependent upon the type of course and curriculum that you are teaching. Some curriculum are much more conducive to it than others. And volume. If you have 400 students in a classroom, that also from a faculty standpoint in terms of managing bandwidth of making sure you have graders or making sure you have teaching assistants to help support some of these things, to monitor the types of activities that are taking place. were helpful to us. But again, we also ourselves are learning through this to figure out some of these tactics may continue post-pandemic. And I think we've all learned that there has been an acceptance to some online education, but is it going to be a replacement full-time? I think that remains to be seen, but certainly in terms of an augmentation of what we're doing in the classroom in a traditional based classroom, I think you may find that this may be something that will continue to persist.
Sir, I know that we've been talking about, ICT-enabled teaching methods. One thing that strikes my mind, which I have experienced that when I was when I was supporting industry, is that we had a very, very robust learning management system. The learning management tools which we used to use were of a high class, right? And these learning management systems really help us to actually maneuver the entire course curriculum, completion rate, success rate, adoption rate by the students and faculties, and so on and so forth. Do you think that a learning management system can now replace, your curriculum from a book or a directory mode to an online LMS mode?
I think you can see a mix of this. There is going to continue, an online learning management system can be great, but the faculty also have to be appropriately trained in being able to maximize the effectiveness and its use. It's putting the keys to the car in front of somebody, but then having them understand and comprehend and effectively execute the use of these tools to be effective. The answer to it is yes. I think that many of the things can occur to do that. However, you are still dealing with traditional education. So traditional education is not going away as we know it. I think we pre-pandemic often had heard as educators, we need to become more online. I'm sure many of you had heard this. I know at my university we heard this. We are behind the times. If we are not online, we are going to fall behind further in the digital divide. The digital divide, the digital divide is even exacerbated with online education because you have people who do not have access. So I think you're going to continue to see the needs of traditional education, and that will not go away. I think you will still need books. I think people will need hard copies of information. However, the level of how much of that you need and the level of interactivity and where does some of that get phased out will become a question for the future. I think certainly it's not as easy as flipping a switch, and I think in many cases, many of our university leaders, I'm speaking for that in my university across the United States and across the world, had made assumptions that we could simply change things to make it go from traditional education to online and we'll never look back. I don't think you're going to see that occur. I think there will be a need to continue to have traditional materials, with the exception of the fact that these can be used as an addendum, getting students to better understand and comprehend information.
Absolutely. Excellent. I think certainly you've been able to touch upon all the important aspects that we were actually awaiting to hear from you. In fact, when you spoke about recruitment and student success and student engagement, I could see Jayesh Minase has a word to mention, that since being the Dean Placements of our Srinagar Institute, right, that virtual challenge of recruitment and academia connect versus industry is far more, an iceberg that we don't see, right, Jayesh?
Well,
yes, go ahead.
Very true.
I think one of the main things to keep in mind, and this is something from the education research that I have done, is that students and the recruitment of students and student success is integrated, meaning the more success that you have on the end of placement, whether it's in academia or industry, the more that drives the recruitment of new students to your university. So several years ago, I participated in a project. It was a global project that examined education systems across various countries regarding, predominantly in North America, but there was also a look at several other countries as well. And what does it take to be successful in recruitment? And the driving of student success strategies, the happier the students are, the better that the students are placed, will drive the front end. Many universities, I believe, waste resources on just thinking of front end. They don't think of the back end. So we looked at that, and there has been an emergence of integrated interdependence, meaning that areas of various universities need to work together to make sure that you're not only taking care of the front end, because that's important to recruit, but your recruitment practices are driven by student success and placement. And that is something that's extremely important to keep sustainability and viability. This has become even more challenging in a global pandemic, because obviously students are thinking, well, I'm going to go get my job. Well, what's happened now is companies are now recruiting online. I had heard one of the speakers talking about this previously. This is something that is a paradigm shift. Students may have been sat in front of their computers and think, well, I'm going to interview online. It's very simple for me. I don't really need to prepare as much, and I don't care if I have my dirty laundry behind me, or it doesn't matter. Well, that professional presence is even more important now, because you're on stage, you're in the spotlight, and you have access to, people have access to you no matter where you are. And this is something we have been working with students in the professional development program on, is that now is the time to become an independent entrepreneur, to make sure that you are helping yourself as a student to be successful. Even virtually, there's a lot that can be done. And who knows, with many companies will eliminate being brick and mortar offices and will be virtual.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for joining today. So, Dr. Minse, what are your views in terms of what Chris just mentioned? Because end of the day, it's not about just completing your educational curriculum directly, but it's also about looking at employability and what is the level of employability, effectiveness we have. End of the day, students look at the aspiring buds, look at going to the industry and supporting their livelihood. So I think you have more experience in this topic, so I'll leave it to you.
Thank you, Mahesh. I think firstly, I should be thanking both Mula Education Society and Jumpstart for this opportunity. In a league of stalwarts, I find myself to be the youngest of the lot, possibly kind of a 12th man. The last time me and Chris, we met for a webinar series, I was carrying a beard. So Chris, this is the new look. I guess change is required in life, especially in the pandemic-like situation. So hi everyone, my name is Jayesh. I'm a faculty to begin with, in engineering at senior institutes. And thereafter I started looking at placements. To begin with, there's something that I would like to share. In the first session, we've talked a lot about how internet has been a problem. The more I read into it, there are possibly 45% of Indians who are currently using internet. And if we go by, the Internet and Mobile Association of India and their report, you would get to know that by 2025, we are going to 90 CR, 900 million Indians who will be using the internet. So I don't think, might be, yes, bandwidth would be an issue. But if you ask me, the biggest issue is where are they using this bandwidth? And I'm going to be a little bit, open in my thought process. I'm sorry for that. But the reality is, most of our people are currently using this bandwidth for OTT platforms, for their social networking. Instead, the students, whether they are from rural India or they are from, the so-called westernized India, they should be using it for professional connects, professional networking and learnings. Like Chris pointed out, that you are in the spot when you are in an interview-like situation. It has happened many a times, even with all of us, that we find it difficult to make sure that that entire process runs smoothly. If to that you add a monkey on the back of you being recruited after the process, or you being not recruited, and your dream after 4 years of, let's say, engineering or a postgraduate degree not being realized, that leads to a lot of stress. So to begin with, I would like to say that as faculty members, as head of our institutions, we need to groom and counsel our students better on where they should be using these platforms. They have all the talent of the world, but unfortunately, what I have seen, like when I compare education in the Western world, I studied in the US as well as Australia as a faculty in Australia. One thing I found different was students there are self-driven. If they want to learn something, they would have half of the answer for what they want to learn, and the remaining half they would go and meet a peer for that. In our part of the world, students expect the faculty to push them. So the talent of the student and the experience of the faculty, experience of not just succeeding in a situation, but failing in a situation and learning from the failure plays an important role. You know, the more I talk to the students, one reason that I still teach, although I look after placements, is I get a lot of feedback from the students about how they're doing, what they lack, where they need help. So one of my suggestions, you know, from my limited experience that I have, is that our training placement officers somewhere should be teaching a little bit. That is very, very important. When you teach, then you know what the students lack. Then you know where they need improvement. That's very, very critical. Having a training placement officer only doing admin role is not going to help, is what I honestly feel. Now, all that said and done, to begin with, when it comes to placement, very, very critical that we remain agile. You know, unless and until we as an academic institute are agile, then we would never succeed. You take example of all the top-notch institutes in India who've been doing good in placement. Mahesh knows it himself. They've been doing good because they've not just been looking after placements, but they've been looking after the training aspect as well. You know, industry today, might be a few years ago, industries were happy to take someone and train him. Now they need a polished product. And then if you add virtual placement process to it, which started thanks to COVID, if you ask me, now the recruiter and his panelists are kind of those spoiled kids whose parents offer them everything. So virtual placement has kind of taken these panelists to deeper parts of India where they have lots of resumes to, you know, scrutinize. So when you have so many resumes and when most of Indians are in science and technology, what happens is, the challenge is now at our end to make sure that out of those possibly, I don't know how many, 100 million resumes or whatever, we need to make sure that our students have a resume which meets the requirement of the industry. That is the challenge, is what I see. And preparing the student for that challenge is very, very important.
So just that's precisely what even Chris mentioned, right? That there has to be a seamless migration or transition from, you know, academia to industry, and that role does not end just with the student. That role does not end just with academia. It ends with even the industry, how they embrace the students, right? There has always been a huge gap between academia and industry in terms of the demand and the supply. We all know that story, right? It's like the chicken and the egg story. But the thing is that, do we have the right kind of foundation where we have actually some kind of a bridge program? Like Chris mentioned about the professional development program, where each and every faculty understands the nuances that a student would face when he or she may enter into the industry. And we need to get them, you know, prepared very well in advance.
Yeah. Right. So, you know, to continue, I'll take up what Mahesh was wanting to know. But one thing I would suggest is, when the student are in their second year, let's say if we just concentrate on an engineering program, and when they are in the freshman year, they join the junior year, as we call the third year, or the sophomore year, second year. Now, in the second year, we need to talk to them and their parents and find out whether they are aiming for higher studies, or they are aiming for placements, or they are aiming for, let's say, public sector job or something else, or an entrepreneurial mind. It's very, very important that that discussion happens. We could do that discussion with the help of our teacher guardians. We've got peers who act as teacher guardians on a smaller class of 20. In virtual processes, you cannot, you know, do 300, 400 students at one time. It would just be a monologue. The information is shared and end of the story. So there, when you talk to them, psychometry was mentioned. At Sinhagad, we've done a lot of psychometry of our students. Unless we know what they lack, unless we know where they are weak, how would we work on them? You know, we all are like these 5 fingers where we have a strength and we have a weakness. Psychometry helps us. We are not bad, we are weak. Once we know the weakness, we can work on the weakness. So my first suggestion would be break them. Like, you know, at Sinhagad, we do higher study conclaves, similar to placement conclaves. So those who want to go for higher studies, they go for higher study conclave. The mind is very clear. If you don't want to go for higher studies, you go for placement conclaves. In both the places, you need profile development. And that is the second part that is important, which Mahesh was discussing with me previously. Building the profile is critical. Like, in our education system, we have, let's say, subjects in mechatronics, in artificial intelligence, in big data, in robotics. It is important that the faculty is supported with softwares. Blackboard, yes, you could replace it with a whiteboard, but how do you replace the understanding and the learning? Their usage of softwares, I could talk in engineering, we've got Python, we've got R programming, we've got MATLAB. You could use them and simulate the real world problems, and during your online teaching, you could basically make the student aware of it. That is something that could be worked on. What that would do is, not only the foundation knowledge would be good, but the application of that foundation would be amazing. And then when the industry connect pitches in, then once your student knows how to apply the foundation, then you can, make sure that their internships are meaningful. The mini projects that they do with your industry connects, they are meaningful. The seminars or symposiums that they participate in are meaningful. That is very, very important, because at the end of the day, to polish someone, you need to make sure that they not only learn through the classroom. And for that, again, I'll come back to the same. They need to be counseled that education is not about that degree. It is about the understanding that you get. Unless you have the understanding, today, when I talk to some students, they are like, oh, I'm going to give this online exam, done. But tomorrow, the world is going to expect you to deliver a solution to a problem and apply that. Your 10 on 10 CGPA there is not going to help you. Your understanding of the topic is going to help you. So these things where, you run these simulations, if you cannot do experiment, run a simulation, that will help. But once you do all this, the student will have a profile, and then his chances of getting placed are going to be better. Because like I said, with virtual placement, what's happening now is, to begin with, there's a variable package. Gone are the days where you could just say that I can communicate, I can code, and I'm an engineer. Now they want to know what more do you have? What more can you offer? It's like I'm wearing a smartwatch right now. It's Apple Face. How many faces can you offer to us? Is what the world wants to know. And for that to happen, students need to participate in different activities. And if they do that, then the variable package will come into picture. Like I'm sure every college who's being represented here, they are having placements where the highest package is, let's say, 30 odd lakhs. The average package is 4 lakhs. Who gets the 30 odd? It is to someone who's got the profile. Building the profile is important. And for that to happen in an online medium, like what we do, for example, at Ahmednagar, is on our YouTube channel, we run different sessions. Yes, it's a monologue at times, but then we take the questions as well through a chat window. So we run YouTube sessions on how to prepare your profile if you're going for a IT background or for core mechanical. We tell them that they need to keep checking, let's say, website of Indian Brand Equity Foundation. There's so many case studies on that website where, you get to know where India is moving ahead, how it is moving ahead, where the skill sets are required. They could go and check the website of the companies. I'm a mechanical engineer myself. I keep on getting this question, what do mechanical engineers do after they graduate? I would suggest they have the best of their lives because all the applications around us are mechanical. But they need to change themselves, tweak a little bit, learn software. That is must. Learn to code. Because even if you take, for example, a company like Accenture, you read the recent case study, they applied IoT and software engineering to Ducati, which is an automobile, and they tested its engine in virtual environment. So not that engineers don't have jobs. We need to meet the need with our skill sets. That is very, very important. And to do that, the colleges have to be agile. The colleges need to make sure that it's not just a placement department, it is a training department as well. Training programs like Jumpstart is offering something. There are many, many training providers. Every company these days offers a training. But which training should be done by which student? Start with a psychometry, my suggestion. Post that, depending on the profile that they are aiming for, help them to train for that profile. It could be a doctor's approach where you as a peer, they come to you and you as a doctor suggest to them that you need to do this to achieve success. So it could be a small history card in itself. And they could do the trainings, you could suggest them the trainings, they could do certifications based on the trainings, and then they would be job ready, because otherwise it's going to be difficult. Companies are not stopping. We know it. Like, people thought that in COVID, the businesses are going to go down. It's not happened that way. It's actually happened the other way. Data science has come up big in India. AI has come up big in the world. ML is now being used for mechanical engineering. We need to make sure that I know we cannot tweak the syllabus a lot. I honestly believe there are lots of constraints, but then we can add certain, accessories to it in terms of trainings, workshops, align our academia and our placement department, do training and make the student job ready. See, we all understand that the situation is not great. We all are going through it. But what is important is, from a student's perspective, they need to understand that change is happening, and they need to believe that, yes, if they work hard, if they practice, then they can get used to the change and perform better. Like Chris pointed out, professionalism. At times, students do not understand that even if the entire recruitment process is happening through the comfort of their home, they need to present their professional side. I've seen some students where not the family member, but their cat jumped onto their lap during the interview process and they lost the opportunity. So it's important that, Professor Ranjan mentioned that he's created a small office in his house. I suggest to the student that they should have a small cubicle in their place wherever they are, where they have network, where they have power supply, and where no one is going to show up. It has to be done. There is no other option, because if they don't do that and if they do not practice in the situation, like we all practice today, we all turned up 10 minutes early to make sure that the entire platform and we all integrate. This is a group discussion that we are doing. Students do the same through a recruitment process. Unless they practice, they're not going to improve. And if they do not improve, there will be bruises.
Sure.
And what I've seen is, when students are bruised, they try to use some other loophole, which we call as cheating, and then they miss out on the opportunity. So that's a concern.
Chris, I just wanted to take one moment of your time. We just want to make sure that we hear you correctly in terms of when we are talking about the student experience, right? We were talking about this yesterday night as well, right? One of the most important aspects that people feel, especially students feel today, is that it's just a simple camera where I need to stay in front of or in back of the camera. So it doesn't really matter what happens during the interview process, but it's the other way around. Today, organizations are training their recruiters to do video interviewing. They're getting professional certificates to do video interviewing. I know of many organizations which are multinational organizations which are investing in their recruiters to get trained so that they can hire the right potential, looking at the facial expression. So there are various facial recognition tools available, which we also have programmed recently as part of Assess Hub. So what do you think? How do you think this entire new wave is going to be in terms of...
I think this is an excellent point to bring up. I think one of the things that I think we've all adjusted to as well. I mean, think about all of you. Before the pandemic, I did not like doing webinars. I think I was not used to doing it. I was used to teaching. I was used to speaking to people in person. I didn't feel as though it was something that I could get all the nonverbals. You only see a certain number of people, and we were not Zoom PhDs and Zoom experts pre-pandemic. I think many of us here could probably say that. If you were, I'd like to sign up to where you were and learn what you learned pre-pandemic. One of the things that we've looked at in our professionalism and professional development program is also training students on this, interviewing virtually. Interviewing virtually takes a different skill. I think by sheer nature, think of the old phone interviews. Many years ago, people would be screened on a telephone call for an interview. You would have your notes out, you could have all of this information and this preparation, but that actually adds more stress. It takes away from the preparation. It takes away from the research. It gives a false sense of security for the interviewee that, well, if they ask me a question I don't know, I can just look it up. Or this is something that we've been working with our students on, to say that this new virtual environment is, consider it just like you're in person. Meaning that you should be professional, you should be ready, you should make sure that you're in an area that's quiet. You should make sure that you're muting your microphone when others are speaking. You should make sure that you've done the research and preparation prior to. So you treat this like a regular interview. And why that's even more important now is to the point that you raised. The companies are now expecting that this may become commonplace. This may be the way of the future where they're interacting with teams globally. And if you can interact appropriately, you can leverage technology the right way, and you put your professional presence, you're going to increase your chances. So we've worked in our professional development program in the pandemic of engaging students that we want them to, in a interviewing course that we have, an interviewing session that we have, work on these skills, practice interviews virtually, because it's very different. You're not picking up on the full nonverbal cues. Yes, you can see the face, but are you able to see the full body language? Is someone's body orientation turned away? And much of my background also is in communication and proxemics and how people interact with one another. This is something, as a communications person, I find very important for students to practice and be adjusted to. So this is the new world that we live in. We also are looking at, in a sense of, Jayesh had raised some excellent points before, is this bridge to the career. I agree with you wholeheartedly that in many cases we think of placement. We go from the very beginning of our journey of recruitment, the student is enrolled, and the students are automatically going all the way to placement. Not only are the staff going and acting as administrators to the placements, the students are going, I'm enrolling in my first course, but I already know what I want to do. There are assumptions that are being made, whereas the bridge is the power skills. We used to call them soft skills. The misnomer there as an engineer and engineering school is soft skills have a negative connotation. They're not as important as hard skills. So we've worked very hard to try to have this become an elevated presence in the pandemic of the importance of building these power skills, include interactive interviews, include the ability to communicate with people, follow up with their communication, thank you notes, virtual thank you notes. What's the best practice in the course of path for you to be able to interact with individuals?
Dr. Palmer, we just were able to retrieve your video, so we would just like to share screen and see if everybody can go through that.
Thank you, Mahesh Iyer, for having invited me for this webcast on challenges faced virtually during the implementation of ICT-enabled teaching methods, an educator's dilemma. I am excited to speak about this particular topic, especially because in Savitribai Phule Pune University, we've been able to create a different kind of a model, which was done because of the pandemic. If you'll remember, 11th of March, WHO decided and declared that the world is undergoing a pandemic. And that is where there was a major distress among academic institutions, as much as in the common and normal life that people were leading. We saw that the academic institutions started relooking at creation of systems on an ongoing basis for teaching online. If you look at the landscape, initial 2 months was spent by people, April and May month, in terms of understanding what lies ahead of me in terms of how do I go about doing this teaching in a normal space. There was a deliberation that started happening even at our university platforms, where we had close to 800 plus affiliated colleges, on how do we ensure that the students get whatever is required to complete the curriculum. And while doing so, the first thing that the university did was compiled all the videos and the sessions that were available online. There were about 2,000 of them, which were uploaded on the library website. And having done this, we realized that this is not going to be sufficient for our student community to get the whole course content, and this is where the deliberations happen on the synchronous and the asynchronous modes of teaching. It all started off with what is synchronous and what is asynchronous in the university system. where people were really not aware of the fact that asynchronous mode meant that they had to create a structure of their course content, record it and put it on a given platform. The pandemic also compelled academic institutions to quickly roll out into an online method, which was unheard of. Any kind of a change in a system takes at least few years, but this is one change which had to be adapted overnight. The challenges and the fears that the colleges had during that time was everyone started speaking about the bandwidth issues because the students had moved out of the colleges and from the universities back to their hometowns. Some belonged to the rural locations, some were in the urban settings, some were in the semi-urban settings. There was also a challenge in terms of how do we motivate the faculties to teach online, and how do we create a content which becomes very, very engaging for the students. The faculties had a fear of facing the camera, saying that, oh my, this is not my cup of tea. And the start happened with the haphazard classes that started happening on the Zoom and the YouTube content which was actually available. So this is how was the starting point for each and every college. Having said this, we said that why don't we try and help and support all our affiliated college systems. So this is where the choice was made of chosen 16 colleges, and these 16 colleges were from the rural setting. There were some from the semi-urban setting, and there were some from the urban setting. One of the colleges was a night college, one was a minority institution, one was a girls institution, one was a traditional arts, science and commerce college. And we ensured that we also reached out to a location where they used to be shut down for of electricity for almost 8 hours. And this is where we felt that if we are able to deliver something and motivate people to do in these areas, we will be able to replicate this model to everyone in the university system. And when we reached out to the faculty members and we checked out with them if they had ever done audio visual PowerPoint presentation, we found that most of them had actually done so, but had not done in front of a camera. So biggest fear that most of the faculty members had was facing the camera, creation of the content in advance, preparing content in advance, and difficulty in delivering a session in the absence of the students. So these were the few things which we identified were the major factors. So we said that why don't we just go ahead and develop a complete end-to-end model. But before we went into it, we also checked out if they were using any of the online platforms, and we found that they were on Google, they were on Zoom, they were on YouTube, and very few, that is less than 31% of the people had actually used a learning management system in the university purview of the faculty members that we checked out. So this is what is the model that I am going to be presenting to you today, which is the SPPU's model of asynchronous teaching on an LMS platform. So this is where we said that we'll start, as I mentioned to you, we onboarded the colleges. We said that each college needs to have one faculty member who would be in charge of ensuring that the right kind of faculties come forward and take up the video sessions and get them recorded. And there was also one technical coordinator that we got in. We created a learning management system which was customized, and it is a Moodle based learning management system that the university created. University also ensured that we paid for the cloud charges for the whole year for all the colleges who got onboarded with us. We also ensured that the LMS access was given to the registered students and also the faculty members. And when the LMS training was done, the training motivated the faculties to create the online content. They realized that if they are going to be on a learning management system, they need to create content, and then the then started the real dilemma for everyone. So how do I write the content? How do I write the content in a very professional manner? So this is where we came forward and we said that we will help and support you in terms of writing the content with the help of professionals. We started teaching the faculty members how to create the online video content. We started providing them with all kinds of inputs as to how to make that content very, very interesting, how to face a camera, how should be the voice diction, how should you, started teaching in the absence of a student, and this all helped build up the confidence of the faculty members, and then the production was done, and we had a system, what we called it as a content delivery express, which ensured that the content which got created, there was an editing team in place in most of these locations to give an output to them within 24 hours. So post production was also very, very fast. Here the university also ensured that at the smaller locations, especially in the Mufassil towns that we had chosen, a studio setting was made available at the cost of the university. The whole idea in this whole process was to build up capacity in the university system, and after the first phase of experimentation with 16 colleges, we went ahead and opened it up for all the colleges, and in the first go we had close to 200 colleges who took up this whole initiative of ours, and we were able to train close to around 1200 faculty members in terms of the capacity building, the training that was given to them on the learning management system, as well as the content support of creation, production and post production which was given. We also ensured that in the learning management system, because majorly the questions that come across is that I don't have a content which is copyrighted, and can I really put it on a internet medium, and this is where our learning management system came to the rescue of most of the teachers and to the colleges, because each college had a separate instance, and in the separate instance each class had a separate instance. So for example, a teacher of accounting who was teaching in one class in one section, the access was given only to the students of that particular section. We also ensured that the learning management system which was given had the facility of online assessment on an ongoing basis. It also had the facility of conducting the examination. To a surprise, when we went in to look at the data of these colleges, we found that one of the colleges had conducted an internal examination with close to 10,000 students. So this became a complete robust model which was provided to the colleges ecosystem with the help and support of the university. Having done this, we felt that we would like to go back to the colleges and to understand whether this, whatever is the model that we have given, whether this is successful, whether they like it, whether this made sense to them or not. And this is where we conducted a survey with all of them, and I'm going to be sharing some of the survey results with you. The question on whether they understood the guidelines on the training, most of them said that they were able to understand the guidelines given to them, and it enhance the quality of the online training. Almost 98% of the people felt that it did enhance their the quality. And also the reasons, we also asked them, why did you go ahead to make an online content? So we said, and then we found that more than 76% of the people said that they would like to make an online content themselves, but they didn't know the wherewithal how to do it. A few were influenced by their fellow faculty members. Some said that the principal or the director actually motivated them to get into it. But we saw that most of them were self-starters. They all wanted to do this, but they did not know how to go about doing it. And this is where university played a very significant role. with this kind of a model that we implemented, we found that there was a major shift and a change in the thought process of most of the faculty members, where we saw that the shift was almost where people only wanted to go and do an online teaching, where they were not required to prepare anything for the content, as opposed to that after this training that we did, almost about 52% of the people became very, very confident of recording the session and broadcasting the sessions. And then we went about, we said that, what has been the impact of our training? They said that now we feel very, very confident. This has increased our level of teaching, and it has been able to improve our performance. There was a major change and shift when you have a classroom setting, as opposed to that in an online setting where the complete framework is very, very different. So that mindset shift and change happen only with the kind of training that we were able to impart to them. And to the question of how was the response to the students to the asynchronous teaching became very, very popular with a lot of students, because people came from rural backgrounds where there was bandwidth issue, and this allowed the students to go to places where the bandwidth was good, download it, take it back to their hometowns, and just viewed the videos at their own convenience. It also meant that they were not required to wait for the classroom to begin on a Zoom platform and at a specific given point in time. And most of the students found that the teaching which was done through this method was excellent and good. Very few where the response was not up to, which was like very negligible amount of 2.4%. Students were really happy. They enjoyed this whole exercise where they could actually learn everything at their own leisure. So in terms of the impact of this particular model, the impact has been that the online, and it's now a new norm, so which people have understood and accepted, that the new norm is going to be online teaching. And given the kind of pandemic that we have, it is essential and important to instill this kind of confidence in the faculty member. And this confidence is what we saw in the faculty members who started saying that, some of them came back saying that my subject cannot be taught using a PowerPoint presentation, or for example, someone who was teaching a math or someone who was teaching some history had never used a PowerPoint presentation, but newer methods were adapted by us, which gave them complete confidence that they could really use a talk and a chalk method to even record their whole sessions that were viewed by the students. And then in terms of, prior to the training program, their order of preference actually changed, and that really reflects in the kind of training program that we actually conducted for these faculty members. This in itself is a reflection of the fact that the model adopted by Savitribai Phule Pune University has been a rocking model, where for the first time in the history of the country, where more than 200 colleges benefited by creation of not only the content delivery through the learning management system, but it also delivered something very, very unique for the university, that is crowdsourcing of the content. For various subjects, now we have the content which has been created. We're very happy to share with you that we've been able to create content for 616 courses in a short span of 3 months. And people have become so well versed with this particular method that today the faculty members have started seeing the punch in what is the online teaching methodology, and the response to that has been tremendously good. And I hope and pray that others also adapt to it, and we're happy to share here that MUHS, the Maharashtra University of Health Sciences, has approached Savitribai Phule Pune University to replicate this particular model. The model which is low cost, the model which is fast, the model which gives confidence to faculty members, the model that helps the ultimate student to reach through the learning management system to understand and get everything as though they are in a classroom setting. It helps assessment, it helps evaluation, it helps in giving the results as well. So this is all in one kind of a system which we have developed in the Savitribai Phule Pune University under our ECDLIC, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have at the end of my session. Thank you.
Firstly, ma'am, I must thank you for taking so much of effort to put this video together for us. I think it's very interesting to see how technology can help us to be virtually present. I know you were trying to be omnipresent by putting up a video like this. We are so glad that, we still can, personally have your presence here. So, without any further ado, ma'am, just quickly, we just wanted to understand, there is so much that you wanted to mention out of your video, but at SPPU, you are one of the most prominent leaders responsible to build a robust governance structure, especially for incubation and innovation. So considering that, for the past 15 months, the entire higher and technical education institution have gone through a major transformational change in the way they deliver lectures. How do you see this change to drive your strategy for innovation and incubation?
So I have a different role in the university, which not many people are aware. But this is besides the Director for Innovation, Incubation and Linkages. And that's the role that I play, which is e-content development and learning innovation center that we have in the university. That is what I lead in the university. And this all started off during the pandemic. And last year when WHO declared on March 11th that this is going to be a year of pandemic. So the first 2 months were the months where people were just contemplating on what needs to be done. And since we represent a huge university with more than 800 plus colleges, affiliated college system, we felt that it was the onus on us not only to help and support the university and its 55 departments, but also to look at the affiliated college system, which actually has 800,000 students. So that was a huge task for us in terms of ensuring that how do we reach out to all of them, help them, support them. So this is where the learning ECDLIC, as we call it as, came to the rescue. And we have experimented on a very unique model. I'm not sure whether everyone will be able to relate to this particular model, but this model was very, very unique, which is like encompassing everyone into the system. So in the first go, or in the initial go, what we did is we identified a set of 16 colleges. And the 16 colleges that we identified were the colleges that were from rural areas, semi-urban areas, urban areas. There were also the institutions, minority institutions, to be muted. I'm not sure.
Sorry, there is a lot of disturbance at the background. May I request whoever is there to kindly put yourself on mute, please? I'm really sorry about this. Can you please go on mute, please? Thank you.
And that's where university came forward and said that, wow, this is an opportunity. If I can transform the college, which is in an area where there's no electricity for 8 hours in a day, and where the internet connectivity is lowest, is where the university is successful in bringing this model about. So this is where we went about teaching people about the concept of an asynchronous mode of teaching, which was not something which was known to people. And, so the training programs, the capacity building that we did, a learning management system that we created, which is a MOOC-based learning management system that we've created. And in this learning-based management system, we have created instances for all the colleges. So initially we did it for 16 colleges. And when people got motivated and excited by looking at the learning management system, they realized that, oh, wow, I don't have a content. And how do I create the content? So the fear for the camera, number one. Fear for teaching in the absence of the student was a second important thing.
Yes.
And third, it also meant that a lot of colleges where faculties are used to going, and talking, they're not used to doing so much of preparation. Not all faculties require so much of preparation. For example, someone who is teaching history, for example, someone who is teaching mathematics is not somebody who creates PowerPoint presentations. So these were the challenges that we came across. And then we said, wow, this is an opportunity. And this is where we started training them in terms of facing the camera with a set of professional team members that we got in. And these professional team members helped them, supported them in terms of, engagement with the camera, engagement in the absence of a student audience. And, the training program helped them and supported them. And once they were in front of the camera, the confidence building for faculty members is not so difficult a task. And, prior to that, people were only used to going on a Zoom or a Google Meet and teaching. But this kind of a format, which we exposed them to. And then we also realized as a university that not every college can instantly go and create studios. So we said that, wow, this is another opportunity as a university. What can we do for them? So this is where we created makeshift studios at various locations. It was done in Nasik, it was done in Ahmednagar. And of course, Pune, we have a very beautiful, full-fledged studio. And this was the access that we gave them. And we told the colleges that the cost for the studio is only about 3 lakh of rupees, Indian rupees, 300,000 rupees was the cost of that makeshift studio. And we said that we'll give this free to you as long as you use it. And after the 3 months of training that we do with you, you want to buy it, you could buy it. If you need capacity building in terms of people, in terms of people to edit it, etc., we are going to help you and support you. And in the second phase, we had 200 colleges who signed up for this whole thing. Now, what is it that we achieved in this whole process? I also ran a survey with all these faculty members after having done this. I said that this is what a wow factor only for me. But let me also go back to people who have undertaken this, and there were close to 1,600 faculty members who got trained into this, and also in terms of content, we were able to get 616 courses. And there were more than 2,600 course videos that got created in a quick span of 3 months. This is November, December, January. These were the 3 months that we created this.
Commendable.
And we were very happy. Everyone sitting in the urban locations, feel happy that I have access. But what happens to the mofussil areas? What happens to the area where there's no internet connectivity? And this is where asynchronous mode of teaching helped them, because the students could actually go download and go back to their hometowns or whatever, nearby locations, and could view that. And this learning management system not only had the teaching material, but it also had the possibility of ongoing assessment and examination. And some of the colleges went ahead and did their internal examination with close to 10. A college in Pune which did an internal examination of 10,000 students on LMS. Now, another challenge that most of the faculty members have on the online space is the problem that what happens to the copyright? I don't have the complete material which is copyrighted that I teach in the class. So this is where we created this learning management system which stated that, okay, this is a classroom and there's a special instance which is created for one faculty and the set of students in that particular classroom. So compartments like the boundaries in a classroom is what we created in the virtual format. And this really helped and supported everyone to get the confidence. And towards the end of it, I feel so happy and excited that we even came out with an award for teachers who had created beautiful content. We gave them awards this year in the month of February during our annual day, which is on 10th of February. We gave awards to these teachers who created beautiful content. So this way we ensured that we got them out of the taboo of, can I really do it? And is this my cup of tea? And can I really do it? So this way, 200 colleges is not a small number,
Absolutely.
which got excited with the whole concept, and there was a percolating effect. So the first set of, initially, not everyone wanted to come and do that, because teachers always feel like we're supreme and we're great. But going and learning something for the first time is something someone of my age, for example, may not want to do it, because I don't want to experiment and make a fool of myself in front of everyone. So the youngsters, the young faculty members actually came forward to do this. And by seeing them and seeing themselves on the screen was something that excited the others also to come back. And then we created the content maturity model, which has now become very, very prominent. And next year we are going to do the same thing, for the next set of.
Alkar ma'am, it's always a pleasure listening to you. There's always a new spin in terms of everything that you mention. And this is something that we always try to, emphasize in my training programs, which I do with faculties, that, you cannot be the master in terms of having a good content. You may not be a very good content developer, but you may be a very good delivery guy. You can deliver that content much more better than anybody else, right? Because content is something which comes from mind, right? It's created. It cannot be just superficial content, right? So I think what you have done as a university is much, much commendable. I think, Chris, you could hear this as well. Christopher, you there?
One small thing that I wanted to share, which was the last point.
Sure.
The icing on the cake for us was crowdsourcing of content. In the whole process, we were able to crowdsource the content of so many faculties, and that came together, which is like something. A lot of universities overseas in India do that, but they do it for themselves, or few IITs are doing it, but they do it for themselves. But this was one initiative where we reached out to our affiliating college system as well, and created a content on various subjects, and this was done in a record time of 3 months. So that is what makes me really happy and excited about the fact. And last thing that has happened now is Maharashtra University of Health Sciences has approached us, and now we are giving the same model to MUHS, and they are going, because it's a low-cost model and replicable model, but it requires a lot of professionalism. So that is where I think that's all I wanted to speak.
Ma'am, this is the difference that, a traditional classroom will do as compared to a virtual classroom. It's like you talking over the video and now online with us has created that impact, right? There's a different kind of a perspective that you brought to the table. Chris, if you could relate to what, Dr. Palkar just mentioned, we're talking about, a studio, a shift studio, and these studios help people to create contents and demonstrate that, and then further deliver that in the classroom. Chris, do you see something similar in your college?
Yeah, I think this is an excellent point that you raise with the work that you've done, Dr. Palkar. I think really important distinction has to do with studio-based creation of courses versus those that are run on a whim. I think within our engineering management program, fortunately, pre-pandemic, we had the ability to use that studio-based course creation. It allowed the quality of the instructional support and development. We did do the courses kind of running in a very quick period of time as well, because at that time, it was pre-pandemic. We were forced in a 3-month period in June of 2019 our provost wanted an online engineering management program, and talked to our faculty, talked to me and said, we need this online engineering management program. And everybody looked at them like they were crazy. How could we possibly do this in 3 months? But the studio-based approach, which you mentioned, I think is an imperative if you want quality instruction and quality delivery of creation of materials. And it creates an environment where the faculty are also putting together information in a studio, and it's professionally done. I think that's a very important component to be able to have with online education. So I just wanted to say, I think that the studio-based approach that you suggest is an excellent way of doing this. And I think is the way to be able to make sure you have professional materials created in a way that without it not looking professional, and without the script of being able to have the curriculum laid out professionally and the students can get the most out of it. I think this is an excellent approach.
Thank you. Yes, Jayesh, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, and what it would also do is with a LMS like this, people would be able to then go to the classroom and have discussions. So you would still be able to make sure that whatever content has to be taught is being taught through the LMS, and classrooms are more of discussion. I remember when I studied at Buffalo for my master's, we were a big batch of students learning optimization, and we had Kemper Lewis as the faculty, and there were two different classrooms. So what he would do is he would make sure that the content is first shared through the LMS and the students receive it, and then he would just be on a discussion mode, and multiple group of students could talk to him and discuss the real world applications. Otherwise, what happens is if LMS like this does not exist, then you are only thinking of covering the syllabus and then giving the exams. So I think something like this is amazing.
Actually, worldwide, what has happened is that the penetration of this kind of a system was only to the tune of about 14 to 15%. So if you look at the Indian landscape, so this was absolutely very, very new for a lot of people, though LMS people had used, but getting into an asynchronous mode of creation of which also is a cost. At the end of the day, there is a cost. I still remember the discussion that we had with the Honorable Minister in this online format here with the Ministry of HRD, then now the Ministry of Education. And this was the howl and cry. Everyone was talking about the digital infrastructure. So people were really not aware as to how do we create this digital infrastructure. And this is where we felt that, okay, can we pay the cost of the cloud for all the colleges? This is doable for a university. Why can't we do this for the college ecosystem? And then, capacity building in terms of, when you see the other person do the same thing and the neighboring college doing the same thing, the first college also wants to do. So there was a lot of competitive spirit between the colleges, and this is how it actually emerged. There's also one small question, I guess. Someone has asked about what about the exams and evaluation. The learning management system has an examination, it has a chatbot, it has a continuous assessment. In fact, the video formats that we've used here, there are chunks that we've created. So for example, if there is a video of about 45 minutes, there is a chunk of 15 minutes, and then there's an evaluation. Unless the student completes that, he is not able to go to the next 15 minutes. And then again, assessment. And then, so there is a continuous evaluation process. The struggle that the whole country is going through today is on the continuous evaluation process, which was addressed in this. More so, also the physical final examination, as we call it, So the examinations are also conducted on a learning management system today. Be it the internal examination and even the university examinations that we have today, which is done by our own EduTech Foundation, the company of the university, the special purpose vehicle that we created in the university, has created this whole robust system, and where we are taking examination of 800,000 students and multiplied by 6 to 8 papers. So this is what we've been doing, and we've done this very successfully. The first time we had some issues and challenges, but second time, the second goal that we had just recently, it was a smooth sailing process for us.
I think
so I feel, universities have to play a more important role as big institutions in India, especially because we are in the affiliated system. How do we help and support and bring in brotherhood, not only brotherhood, but also ensure that everyone gets motivated and excited to do what the other person is doing? So that's how things worked out. For example, a college called KTHM in Nasik had 800 faculty members trained, and they created more than 1,000, course videos. Seeing that, the college in Ahmednagar, so New Arts and Commerce College, got excited. So they were the ones who took it up. And in spite of the fact that there was pandemic, people were falling ill, there were people who were affected by COVID, everything was happening around. It was not smooth sailing at all, neither for my team who was going and helping and supporting them. Suddenly I would hear that, the person who's gone to do the training is himself affected by COVID. So all these challenges were a part of what we were doing. But we were very happy and very excited and very satisfied that we've been able to do some good social service for people.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Palkar. In fact, It was absolutely inspirational for all the educators and, of course, the other side of the table like us who are the training partners and education consultants, that we understand that what is it that even a university with such a high repute is doing for all its affiliated colleges, and what kind of governance structure you have put in place to make sure that we all survive this huge catastrophe of pandemic crisis and help meet our motto of education for all, no matter what circumstances our way. And I really want to thank you for being a part of this session, Dr. Palker. It's really, really interesting talking to you. Without any further delay, I know we have surpassed that 2 hours of window for our webinar. I'm sure that you all have been excited to hear all our eminent speakers, as well as you are excited to understand what's next. So I would leave that to Dr. Lowry to conclude. And I want to thank each one of you for being such a great eminent speaker and giving your valuable insights to all of us. We are going to put this into our playbook, which is a flip book of solutions given by each and every speaker for the questions that they have responded to and the situations that they have overcome. So thank you so much. Dr. Lowry, back to you.
Thank you, Mahesh. All the speakers gave very useful input and guided us on how to sustain education ecosystem and continue with teaching and learning under this COVID pandemic. I am sure that everyone attending this webinar will agree with the speakers and definitely implement some of the strategies explained here in this webinar. I take this opportunity to thank our guest of honor, keynote speaker, Dr. Prabhat Ranjan, Honorable Vice Chancellor, D.Y. Patil International University, Akkordi, Pune, for accepting our invitation and for his valuable guidance. I am also thankful to Dr. Christopher Connor, Assistant Dean and Graduate Enrollment Officer, University of Buffalo, New York, for his logical explanation. I must thank Dr. Vivek Ranga, Dean, IBS Business School of Ahmednagar, Gujarat, Dr. Apurva Palkar, Director Incubation Innovation and Entrepreneurship Cell, Savitribai Phule University, Pune. Dr. Manjusha Deshmukh, Principal, Saraswati College of Engineering, Kharghar, Navi Mumbai. Dr. Savita Sete, Principal, Mahila Kala Mahavidyalaya, Bid, and Dr. J.S. Minase, Dean, Placement, Sinhagad Institute of Management, Pune. Thank you everyone for valuable time and suggestion. Thank you again. I am really grateful to Prashant Gadak, President, Mula Education Society, Sonai, for permitting me to conduct this webinar series. And also thankful to Uttam Londe, Secretary, Mula Education Society, Sonai, and Dr. Vinayak Deshmukh, Joint Secretary of Mula Education Society, Sonai, for kind cooperation and support during this webcast. I must thank my support team, Mr. Somnath, Mr. Mahesh, Mr. Ashok, who helped me during the conduct of this webcast series. Thank you all once again.
Thank you so much, everybody. It was wonderful talking to you all. In fact, I'm more than happy to share with you that we would be very soon going to schedule our second series of our webcast. Like I said, it's going to be a lineup of good, strong subjects that we're going to talk on, good topics that we're going to talk on. And I'm sure that with the first program being so inspirational, it's driving us to do more and more for the education community. And I want to really thank each one of you for sparing your time on this day, and look forward to many more seminars and many more sessions henceforth. So thank you, Mula Education Society, especially Dr. Lowry, for giving us an opportunity to collaborate with you, join hands, and work towards a common goal. And thank you, everybody. Unless anybody wants to share anything, that's all from my end.